no guilty pleasures.
No guilty pleasure. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm still the only one in the corner having guilty pleasures.
Welcome to Sparkling Harmonies. We're your hosts, Lily
and François.
And we are two friends who don't quite listen to the same genres or music, but
we are here to talk about everything and anything music related. Yay!
And today we've got Liz here, Liz Labelle, who is one of my friends from, we just calculated, more than 10 years ago. She is, let me just make sure I say this properly. She is a singer, songwriter, and producer from Montreal who's now in Nashville, working as a full-time performer, but also producing and writing music for herself and other artists. She released an album in 2014, a single in 2018 and 2019. Those are all available right now on Spotify, if I'm not mistaken. And
That's
Apple,
right.
Is it also on Apple Music?
Yeah, all streaming platforms and wherever you buy your music as well.
Perfect. So Liz Labelle, go check her out. She has a new album coming out in spring 2022 and a new single upcoming in November. So
that's right.
Welcome, Liz. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's pretty much it. You got it all covered.
Okay. So like all of our other guest episodes, we always start with our Get to Know Your Guests segment. So let's start with, what is the first album that you bought?
The first album I bought, I can't remember which one exactly, but it was a Backstreet Boys record with the red backdrop.
That's mine. I think that was mine.
Yeah. I can't remember what the title was, but that was my jam growing up.
I think it was just Backstreet Boys.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
Backstreet Boys. Yeah.
The Backstreet Boys album.
There you go. Yep.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Those are good.
And honestly, and it's so funny to think about that now. You're making me realize too, like I play that stuff out live. It's part of my set list. It's part of like, people hear it and they go crazy. It was just so influential too. And you think about it, like people call it a guilty pleasure for a while and stuff like that, but it's just great music.
I did.
So François is a metalhead. So he's a metal half of our podcast. So a lot of, but more and more, the more we advance in here, the more he's just listening to everything now.
Yeah, I try to at least.
And the thing is, like you just because, like, you know, our friends from are kind of all over, and like you find out that a lot of people in the metal scene, they dabble into so many different things and sometimes weird stuff, but a lot of it is just like they like rap and like hip hop. They like the other side of hard, hard stuff, and then just like the pop stuff too. Just
but
there's no limit to it.
But they're just they're not always very vocal about it.
No, nope. we keep our guilty pleasures secret just for us. And what is your most memorable experience with music?
Oh my gosh. It's forever going to be Warped Tour because I did it once. And it leaves either a scar or an impact, however you want to see it.
So you should really tell that whole story though
Dude, I worked on a record with some friends of mine that I met at a show that I played. I opened for them once. They're called The Century. I don't think they're around. They're not around anymore.
No, they're not.
Dude, that was awesome. They're all doing their own projects. There's two brothers in the band. They produced my whole album. And then they were like, "So what you got for marketing and promotion?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. Like, put it out and see what happens." And they're like, "Think again." And so I went home, brainstormed, and I'm like, Warped Tour is my scene. I love Warped Tour. It's the energy that I identify with. It's where I grew up. It's where I went there every summer. I loved it. So I'm gonna follow Warped Tour. And I packed those like hiking bags. And maybe this much space allotted to clothes and toiletries and things to keep me clean.
And the rest was your album.
Was just my album, just copies of my record. And I sent Greyhounds and megabuses from one Warped Tour to the next, and sold maybe over 1,000 copies of my album just from talking to people waiting in line, and met some friends along the way, met some touring opportunities along the way, got to play Warped Tour that summer too, and that was freaking awesome. I thought I would just be that kid that like needed to take it out of the way, you know?
Yeah,
but
because Kevin offered you a spot, right?
He offered me a spot in the acoustic basement and then on the Kevin Says stage a couple times as well. And that was freaking awesome. That was like my teenage and young adult dream come true. And honestly, I would love to, if it were to come back again, I would do it in a vehicle. But
yeah. Oh, that was so crazy. When I remember seeing you post about it, posting pictures of, you know, you following it, and then all of a sudden you were playing it.
Yeah. It's like, you know, the perfect little plot line to you know, teenager making his dream come true storyline. Yeah. You know, like I never imagined that I would, because I'm never that person. I work hard, I get stuff done, and that's it. Nobody ever like spots me and says, "Hey, here's something," you know. And it happened, and I was so grateful. Like, and that whole team was awesome. Everybody was so cool. Some of the bands, and like, I, you know, a few years later, like some of these stories came out, but like some of the bands were kind of weird. But most of the people that I stuck by were just grade A quality people, musicians, friends, all that. Yeah. Like, there's
that's great.
A couple of them that we still keep in touch with, and
because you followed it that whole tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
From start to finish.
Yep.
Wow.
One night I was invited to an after party, and I called an Uber to get to the bus station, and the Uber got lost, and so I missed my bus, and I ended up having to crash on somebody's bandwagon. Just like, and that just shows like how kind and how cool people were on that tour too. They were like, "Yo, you're doing this alone. We're gonna help you out," and it was cool. It was just an awesome experience.
Was that summer 2014? Yeah. The year your album came out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And you were alone, or did you have? I thought Val was with you for a little while.
So first half of the tour I was alone, and then we stopped in Montreal and picked it up with my sister and Val. And Val, she took like some of the coolest shots ever. She's such a talented photographer. I miss her. She's out in Europe. I think she's in England now.
Oh, really?
She's over in Europe now. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I remember seeing those pictures and I was like, oh, the dream.
Right? Come true.
And like, I won't lie, I still look at those pictures and I'm like, damn, I was gutsy. Reminiscing of, oh no, you're fine. And just like reminiscing on some of the coolest memories I've made, honestly.
Yeah. But, you know, you say, you know, that you were gutsy and everything, but I mean, I feel like when you said that you were going to do that, I wasn't surprised because you're the type of person who, I thought, because, you know, we know each other, but we don't really know each other that well. Right. And, you know, I always saw you as somebody who would just do whatever you need to do to get your name out there. And that seemed like the perfect thing to do at that point.
And that is true. One person put it in a way that could come across as insulting, but I heard that and I'm like, that's freaking awesome. He said, Liz Labelle just does what she wants. And I'm like,
wait, little what?
I do what I want.
Okay.
She just does what she wants. Yeah, that's one of my friends said that and I'm like, that's cool. That's awesome. Because
so
even
is the title of the next album?
No, the title of the next album is something else, so we can talk about that later. But yeah, I just think it's just, and there's actually an idea for a song now. But it's just cool that I was like, I'm going to do something completely crazy, and I did it, and here I am.
Yeah. And so back into the get to know questions.
Yeah.
You know, I think you probably don't really have any guilty pleasures because you're kind of like me, you just assume, but do you have any guilty pleasure, or what do you listen to that would be considered a guilty pleasure?
I think that's the thing is like, I don't really feel any way for for listening to what I listen to. I'm a big fan of my friends. I love listening to what my friends make. And sometimes, like being a fan of like somebody that you're really, good friends with could be, considered as weird, but like I listen to all this stuff. I listen to all sorts of stuff, honestly. The other day I was listening to just some classical Italian opera, and it was just because like I'm back in vocal coaching, because as you can hear, my voice gets really tired from 4 days of singing. But just like I'm all over the spectrum. It just doesn't even matter. But I was listening to an anonymous rendition, because there was no name for it, of Starvitino, an Italian opera. And then the next day I was listening to my friend's band, Ice Man Chills, because they have new music out and it's awesome. And then the next day I'll be learning a new song for our set. Trying to add some more Britney Spears into the set list too, just because, she gets royalties and hopefully it'll help her along the way. So we do that kind of stuff. Just anything really. So I don't know. No guilty pleasures.
No guilty pleasure. That's fine.
Yeah,
I'm still the only one in the corner having guilty pleasures.
It's okay. You'll shed some light on it one day. And we'll
I mean, Blackpink made his top 10. Was it top 10 of last year? So
yes.
When we did our top 10 episode of the year, Blackpink made it. So I think we've gone steps ahead.
Yeah, big step ahead. And what was your sorry.
I'm curious to find out what your favorite like discovery outside of the whole metal realm was. Would it be that? Would it be Blackpink?
Yeah, I think Blackpink, because I discovered them this year. Like, let's get real. Pandemic helped me to discover new stuff, and I think that was the first, I would say, new artist, quote unquote, that I discover and embrace it as a not guilty pleasure. I don't know how to word it, but I just get into it. I was like a fan, like at like 3 songs, because they had I don't remember the name, but they had a documentary on the Netflix. And after like 3 songs, I was like, I want to be best friend with them. I want to be part of the how they call that, the Blink. The fan clubs.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Like it just like fun and like happy, and I don't know, that was like really, really fun to watch. So yeah, I would say Blackpink was probably the last one or the first one, depending on
the only one.
Yeah. Not that much. I jumped into the Machine Gun Kelly bandwagon.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's not a guilt. I don't know.
Depends.
Not for you.
No, but depends, because he's not. He have like a big success, but there's many people call him like a fake artist, so it can be seen as a guilty pleasure for some people.
Or elitists.
Yeah, gatekeeping community. So yeah, Blackpink. I don't remember what the move to do to be a part of it, but Blackpink. So we're going back to know more about you. Who is your artist of the moment?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I'm gonna sound like such a normie saying this, but I've been back into this Paramore kick.
Oh really?
And it's weird because like I haven't really sat down and listened to them in a long time. But we're slowly adding more Paramore to my set list, and I'm just like tapping back into that groove and the whole style and that energy, just because we're producing the new record, and a lot of those influences are coming back into my music. And I've just been in that mood. And then just getting back in touch with like proper vocal technique. A lot of listening to Hayley Williams was very helpful with me hearing how to word some stuff, how to sing some stuff. So it's for 2 reasons, but just because I've just been in that mood. So yeah, I'm back. Yeah. I'm back on the Paramore train.
And I can see maybe a link between how you express yourself and you see yourself as an artist with Hayley Williams, because she's kind of doing what she want to do,
like
you said before. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Her solo stuff was absolutely insane, and you could tell she was trying things out, and you could tell that she was like, it might not be the same grade or the same range or whatever. It's still Haley Williams, but as Paramore, but she did it, and it's so weird and so eclectic, but it's so interesting. She still managed to make it so fun. I loved the stuff that she released as a solo artist. I thought it was brilliant.
I'm not sure if I listened to a lot of it. Because this was a while ago though, right?
This was early 2020. Yeah.
Oh, early 2020. Okay, so I did not.
Yeah.
You're late to the party.
I am.
He released one. I guess it's a full album, some EPs.
Okay, I'll have to go check that out.
He wasn't messing around.
No. And so what is your song of the moment? It can be from your artist of the moment, or it can be from anything else.
Levitating by Dua Lipa. I like the fast-paced singing. It's so cool to me. She's so cool too, and that record she put out was just so good. Can we just talk about how insane, like, some of the material that was released in 2020, especially by women, all by women, they were dominating, man. Like, Phoebe Bridgers came out with some freaking great material. Haley Williams did. Miley Cyrus, Dua Lipa, all of them.
Yeah.
And that was.
And then next year you're coming along.
Yep. Dude, I'm next.
And so, François, what have you been listening to these past 2 weeks?
A couple of stuff. I discovered a new band called Dogleg. If you're a fan of Texas is the Reason, a old emo band from the 90s. They are totally fan, and they never hide it. And I just click on the link. I think it was on the Bandcamp Weekly Discovery. They had like a little snippet of a couple of new albums coming out. And I just read the little description they had. We love to play fast and we love to play hard. And I'm like, oh, sounds fun. And it's really like old emo stuff. Like, you want to be part of the crowd and sing along with them. And
especially in that video clip you sent me.
Yeah, they are really, really, really. I don't know how to say that. They play with their body. Like, they're just not singing. Like, they throw themselves everywhere. Like, they are all sweaty. It's like they feel their music, and it's really contagious. And I really like those bands, because when you saw a band like that in a small venues, like, you're part of them. Like, you join them, and like for like maybe a 30, 45 minutes, you forget everything. You're just like in a stream of energy, and I really like that. So like we said since the beginning of the podcast, I will have this band to my band to see live, like, as soon as possible.
So, François has a long list of those.
Yeah. I don't know why. No, but I really build up a big list, because I'm ready for the next step. I guess 2022. I don't know. And I want.
There's a lot of shows. There's a lot of shows. Well, in the States, there are a lot of shows. In Canada, there's not a lot of shows yet.
I think they're starting to announce, like, Canadian dates, just because some of the guidelines are being a little clearer. I don't know what it's like for Quebec. I know that there are shows booked for later this year.
Yeah, I've got a concert ticket for October.
Okay. Oh, and I know. One of my friends, she's putting on a show in September too, I think.
Yeah.
With City and Color, and so I don't know what that's going to be like. They might ask for, proof negative.
Yeah,
or vaccine passport, or I don't know how they will call it, like
something like that.
Yeah.
But I'm ready.
Hopefully it's not. Yeah, same. I mean, like, even here, they've been I've been playing for a year now, so that's not really much of an issue, but it's different. But they're still figuring out how to do it, and it's like they're flip-flopping back and forth between enforcing a negative test, forcing the vaccine, and they're like, no, it's not because freedom and like a bunch of stuff like that. But like, it's so unclear. But they're rolling with stuff like, and there's people punched up into rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, we saw some pictures of Lollapalooza.
Oh my gosh!
With the Limp Bizkit comeback, and they stopped doing shows for the rest of the year. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what about you, Lily?
I've been listening. So a couple of days ago, With Confidence released a new song called Paper. It's like their fifth song off their upcoming album. Their album is coming out, I think, in a week or a little bit more. Or anyway, it's coming up soon, so I'm really excited. But by now, I kind of feel like I've heard already half of the album. But it's Paper. They've released a cute video clip with it, which is just an animation. It's really cool. I like the video clip. It's simple, but you can see the meaning behind it. So it's not very different from, the other songs that have released. I think this might be my favorite from what they've released so far. And, it's just typical With Confidence. So it's rock, it's catchy, and makes me really excited for their upcoming album. And there's a big difference between the, I have a blank here, the chorus and the non-chorus verse. Thank you. Where, in the verses, it's a little bit softer, and then it really builds up for the chorus. So I like those types of songs. So I think I like that contrast between the two parts of the song. So
there's like a clear build.
Yeah.
I love that.
It gets louder, and then it gets more energetic. Yeah. So it's one of those types of songs. So, yeah. What else have you been listening to, François?
I discovered the most perfect mashup of visual and musical thing together. It's called King Woman. She had a new album called Celestial Blues. Let's imagine a mix of doom metal with shoegaze and grunge from the 90s, and stick the visual of Marilyn Manson during the Antichrist Superstar era and Mechanical Animals, the album after, when he was all in white, naked, disguised as a woman, and put that together with like chores and visual from the Christ versus Lucifer, and it's everywhere. No, but
Liz is trying to imagine this in her head, and it's not working.
It's a big mashup, but the backstory of I don't remember her real name. I think is Isfan Diary or something like that. Don't quote me on her name, but her artist name is King Woman. She was her family was in a cult when she was younger, and there's a lot of trauma that come with that. And she tried to express that in her music. So the visual and the she had tropes. I don't know how to express it, but she
did you just Google it, Liz?
Yep.
I saw the change in her expression.
Yeah, but
it's pretty cool though.
But she used parts of Christian mythology. She used church music, I guess, and she built that universe where the doom part are really there to emphasize the singing, and there's it's drenched in reverbs, and it's really a thing as a whole. You can't just listen to it just a song and say, oh, okay, I don't know, it's a whole album. And I'm not sure it's a proper way to say it, but she practiced mantra, I'm not sure, because she repeats a lot the same sentence over and over and over again, but there's a huge buildup behind her from the music, and there's a whole band with drop tune guitars and a big drum and stuff like that. And as a singer, she's really great because she can sing really clean stuff you will hear in the church, and on the other side she screams and growls. So it's seriously, it's something. The first clip she had for the album is like nothing, because her persona is really something. Like seriously, check it out.
It's not, like it kind of, so when you say like the church music, or like kind of like what are they called? Oh my gosh, the song Pompeii by Bastille.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like super echo and stacked vocals, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. I'm down with that.
And there's like what's the name of the big piano?
Organ.
So you can hear like the trauma, like visually and with your ear too. So it's really funny. But
that's
it's dark.
ASMR shit right there.
Yeah, but be ready. It's something. It's really like bigger than just songs.
Okay.
And I really enjoyed the ride. Like I listened to the album like in straight, and like it's something. I really enjoy it.
the video clip that you sent me is something.
Yeah.
And it's not complicated. It's not like this super complex idea or anything. It's just the camera following her around in like a spinning motion, but it like conveys the emotion really well. I got dizzy watching the video personally, but that's me. And so the other song that I've been listening to is Smile Again from Black Bear. Black Bear, who's been like popping up everywhere these days. Like he was in an All Time Low song last year. He was in Machine Gun Kelly's song. And so funny story, this year, François, your wife is going to be like, damn it, Lily.
He's playing with BTS?
No, but the reason that I learned about this song, Smile Again, was because one of the guys from BTS, Jungkook, he did it live where he was playing songs and he was singing the songs, and he sang the song, and I was like, wow, this song is really good. And so I Googled it and I added it to one of my playlists on Spotify. It's just, he has a very soothing voice. It's just very calm. It's, I don't want to say monotone because that has like a bad connotation, but it's just kind of, it's just very smooth. And I find it very calming. And it's funny because I actually used to listen to him 10 years ago before he changed name to Black Bear. So there's this one song that I bought on iTunes, and I still remember because when I found it, I listened to it nonstop. It was called Learning to Fly. If you can still find it on YouTube. I don't know if it's anywhere else. I still have it in my iTunes library. But it's this really old song, and it's back when he used to go by his name. So it was Matt Musto. Yeah, Musto. And the EP was called The Year of the Black Bear. And that was the year that he decided to go and change to be Black Bear.
Oh,
so cool. I used to listen to him.
I'm down with
you were cool.
I'm down with the glow up like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because I didn't realize that, he's been in the scene for so long now. And now he's finally getting recognition. Because this was probably one of the artists that I discovered while adding people on MySpace back then. Because 2010, 2011, that was my MySpace music days. So, it's crazy that he pushed through, because for all this time, I guess he was still releasing music, even though it wasn't really getting him out there. But it's crazy because when I went on to the YouTube of his the video for Smile Again, there were so many comments saying, "Oh, I'm here because of BTS. Thank you for making me discover this song." And so it's I'm really happy for him that he was pushed to the front these past few years with his collaborations, but now he got kind of a little bit more exposure for people who might not have heard of him through other means. So that's really cool because he has a really great voice.
So next year we'll be playing with Travis Barker and Avril Lavigne. Will be the new pop punk artist of the year.
Wait, what?
Because Machine Gun Kelly and Mudson, it's all because Travis Barker is releasing and helping artists to release stuff right now. He's like the new godfather of the new wave of pop punk.
Dude, what a great dude. He's been my favorite drummer for a long time. He's kind of like who I looked at when I was back when I drummed a bunch. And seeing people like actually take on projects like that and like give people that confidence and that boost and that help, like it's just so cool because you don't see that as much anymore.
Yeah.
It's an old mentality and it got lost and now it's back and I love to see it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's kind of pushing pop punk back out there.
A lot.
Oh yeah. We want it. We need it.
Yeah, we absolutely want that. So now that we've got to know Liz a little bit better, let's get into the subject of today, which I don't think I said at the beginning. I just realized this.
You keep it secret.
I guess so, but people will know what the title anyways. But so today we're talking about autotune, and there's now other programs too, but the more it's more widely known as autotune. So that's why we wanted to have Liz on, because we wanted to have somebody who sings to talk to us about that too and get to know her opinion on it. So let's start with a little autotune 101. François, do you want me to explain it?
You seem like someone who have a little story to tell.
I don't. I really don't.
But it's a fun story. I don't have it like by heart, but in fact, it's a guy who was studying seismic activities to help company to find gas, I think. And he made all his money there. And a couple of years after, during a supper, a friend of him asked him to build something to sing perfectly as a joke. And he used his whole technology to build something called, I don't remember the exact name, but autotune. And in fact, correct me, Liz, if I'm wrong, but it just now a plugin, but a piece of software, if you may, that correct pitch and alternate voice a bit and mostly hit. And we know it. I think most people know it because Cher abused it on Believe. And maybe 10 years, 15 years after that, people remember autotune with T-Pain and the T-Pain effect.
Right. There's this whole battle. I think based on a timestamp, Cher is technically the first to publish a song using autotune. But there's this whole debate, like who did it first? Is it T-Pain or is it? And I think Lil Wayne is in that bunch too. As to who used it first, who made it famous, who was the hipster in this whole situation.
And so the reason that I wanted to talk about this was because now it's just so widely used, and there are people who are very heavily against it. There were protests. There were like all these movements. What? Yeah, I
Jay-Z started all with the DOA. Instead of autotune.
Yeah, and then there was wait, let me find this. Death Cab for Cutie did like something. They wore ribbons to protest against it at the Grammys. And it's just there's this it gets a really bad rap. But because I mean I think I can understand, but if you're using it just as a tool to help and not just to hide everything, then like it's fine, it's a tool. But if you're using it and then that's not how you sound like at all, then maybe that shouldn't be what you
should be doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Because sorry.
Let's start with Liz. Like, do you use it? What do you think about it? Like,
I have a very defined opinion on it. If it's a crutch, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. If you use it in a certain way, such as vocal stacking, and especially if you start stacking vocals. So stacking vocals means harmony, and sometimes you make these vocal blocks. And in a session, that's what it looks like. You have a strip on top of a strip on top of a strip on top of a strip, and one and two together, it's fine. Let's get a third, a fourth, a fifth. The tension between any kind of dissonance can be it could be uncomfortable, especially now that we're used to hearing super tuned music. It's hard to kind of to let go of that. And then you've got different kinds of voices as well, like especially because we use autotune on vocals most of the time. Some people use it on instruments, and I don't like that's a whole different ballgame.
I didn't know there was autotune for instruments.
Some people use it might be for the affecting of it, or it might be for actually like the pitch correction. But some people definitely play around with that in that regard. You got different type of vocalists. You got like the Billie Eilish of this world, where like they're so quiet and they could be precise. Whereas sometimes when you have a very energetic, super performance driven vocal, that's where in my opinion, if you start tuning that kind of stuff, that's fine. And there's such a thing as organic tuning. That's what I call it, where you don't fix every single issue. You don't hear like I call it the little staircase effect, where it's like, super T-Pain Lil Wayne. But it's like, you just fix the really problematic parts, and you do very deliberate fixing. You got a little sound strip, and you break it into like 4 or 5 instead of just 3 or 2, and you correct it that way. I call that like organic or deliberate tuning.
Yeah.
I'm all for that, especially like I said, if you're a very performance driven vocalist and like it's all about emotion and it's all about the right take. I'm fine with that. But if you're like all over the place and there's all these, we call them tuning artifacts, where you hear like the clipping, the splicing, the this, the that. I can't listen to that stuff. There's a lot of people here that are producers, and they don't understand how to tune a clean, strong pop vocal normally. And that's kind of like where my producing comes into play, where like I do vocal production. I do vocal arranging and vocal production. And I'm working alongside a couple producers that either are newer in the pop realm or pop rock realm, or are people that I enjoy working with, and just I want to give them the tools to make their work in production sound better. Because I've had the opportunity of working with an award-winning producer back home, and he taught me so much. Just my time in studio and some of the stuff he had me do vocally, and him explaining what's going on the screen and what he was doing. That stuff, you pay money for that nowadays because everybody monetizes everything now.
Everything, yeah.
But those lessons that I got for free were so valuable, because I share that. I'm happy to share that with anybody that wants to know and wants to have better quality production. But it makes a huge difference in the sound of your vocals, because I see a lot of pop vocalists here that work with these different producers, and their vocals sound terrible. And it hurts. It sucks, because I'm used to that, that quality. that I had with my producer back home. And then I come here, and you're in Music City. You're in a place where a lot of like prolific musicians come from, super talented, skilled artists, and like their stuff sounds like garbage. And it sucks. It really sucks. And it's simple fixes. It's a tiny bit more time consuming, and it's a little less, cutting corners. But it makes a world of a difference. It makes your DIY at home production sound like a DIY at home production to a polished vocal. And I'm probably going to become one of those like annoying, video rats here that's going to be like, no, it's not good enough. Splice it even more. If you want to tune it to that degree, splice it even more. I know I'm giving my I'm working with one producer. His name is Andrew Courier, and he's been working on a lot of my stuff, and he embraces what I've been telling him, and I love working with him because he's a freaking studio nerd, and he's a kook just like I am, and we've been trying a lot of weird stuff in the studio, and he's kind of like my mad scientist with me, and
That's good.
And it's just like, it's so cool to work with somebody like that because like I'm learning too, and I like a lot of the lessons that were taught to me, I'm applying it in the way that I know from a vocalist standpoint and a vocal arranger standpoint. But him pushing the buttons and doing the splicing and actually like going in and like working those maneuvers, like it's a different perspective for him too. And then there's like that language barrier too, where I'm saying something and he understands it, but like in a different, not language, but like I'm probably not using the right studio
terms
or recording terms and stuff like that. But we mess around with stuff and we finally get to the point where I'm like, that's what it's supposed to sound like. And we sit back and listen and we're just so proud. And I know like I think I was one of his first pop projects, and now he's got all these different artists coming in, and it's just so cool to watch him do that and with a bunch of different artists and like, Instagramming, like, this is cool. I'm really excited. And just like seeing that he's like working on some cool new projects that's good. It's awesome. It's so cool.
But you mentioned the deliberate or organic auto-tuning, and I think I agree with you. Like, I didn't know, like, I mean, I didn't have a term to it, but that would be what I would have considered like, okay, auto-tune, like not cheating auto-tune if you want, just because like you mentioned the very, the emotional vocals or whatever that you need to have the right take, and you can't just re-record like a part of it. You have to redo the whole thing for it to sound okay. And like, if there's this one point where your voice cracked, but the rest of the take was fine, then yes, go correct that little crack, because that you can do it perfectly.
Sometimes, a lot of the times, the producer wants the crack, so that's emotion. That's raw emotion.
That's true.
And sometimes they'll go into the next take, and it won't happen, and they're like, "I'm going to keep this one because it's got like some bite to it."
Yeah,
that happens all the time.
Sometimes it's part of the song. Like, I have a really precise example, but to me, I never want to hear Kurt Cobain with autotune.
No,
it was part of his style, of his signature.
Oh.
I can't imagine a Nirvana song without like him doing a false note and like, I don't know, because I can't. He's a singer, but probably not the best singer, but the best Nirvana singer, I guess. So I can't imagine a song with perfect voice.
It's part of the sound. It's part of that band's identity. You can't have it. You can't have a Nirvana now with, like you said, somebody else. It just makes no sense. There's such a thing too as like, because you said Kurt Cobain, and that's a perfect example. He loves his vocals slow, like kind of like you don't jump to the next note. He kind of
it's a curve.
Yeah, and correcting that is impossible because what autotune's going to want to do is, instead of letting it curve up, it's going to break it into like the staircase, and that's where you get that like broken, boxy kind of sounding vocal. And that's the thing; those are organic things that you can't
replicate.
Some people are really good with, like I said, you're going to take that, you're going to splice it really finely, and then emulate it yourself. So you still hear those tuning artifacts. You'll still hear it, but there is a way. It's more time consuming.
Yeah, but now autotune is so like natural in pop music, or at least in mainstream music. That I saw, I would say, a YouTube sensation. There's a girl that can sing like autotune. Like she modify her voice as a sound with autotune. So because for her that's I don't know. I'm not saying it's a way to sing, but she impersonated. Like, she is autotune, and it's fascinating because when you see someone doing it like in real time, it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Because,
and it's so weird because like your ear is now so accustomed to the sound of it that like sometimes I caught myself like breaking a note in a very like robotic way.
Yeah.
And like because like what you'll do is when you're tracking something, you'll drop 3, 4, 5 takes or whatever, and then you'll listen back and you choose your favorite one. And sometimes I was like, "Did you tune this?" And they're like, "No," and I'm like, "Weird," because like my voice emulated that effect, and yeah, it's just like it's so weird what you're like just contemporary music, just like it trained our ears to hear music a certain way, you know?
Yeah. But so what I have a problem with usually is, like I said, when the voice is tuned so much that it sounds completely different live.
Mm-hmm.
And by completely different, sometimes it just doesn't sound like the same person at all.
No.
And that's what I think, like at that point, if you needed that much autotune for your voice to sound okay for an album, maybe music is not what you should be doing.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure Liz will back that up, but you can have a bad day. You can have a like.
But I mean, sure, a bad day, but like if your whole album sounds like that.
Yeah, no, but what I mean, because if you go on YouTube and you search for autotune or like in defense of autotune or whatever, there's always like the perfect version on the album versus like the worst night of the tour.
Okay, sure.
So like sometimes you have to look in between to see the reality, but
true. But I mean, there were some artists that I listened to their songs. I like their songs, the recorded versions, but I cannot go and see them live.
We want names.
No.
Want names.
I'm not gonna.
But seeing as how touring is like what 50% of your revenue, if they can't play shows, then that's animal.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't worry me. There's some people that are just like studio artists, and then they just put music out just for like thinking licensing, and that's fine. But if they're hoping to like have a culture and a fan base and all that stuff, then
it won't happen, or it won't last. Yeah,
probably not.
But I mean, nowadays autotune is getting to a point where, well, I mean, it's already to a point where you can use it live, not as well if you want as in the studio because you can't edit. But it is being used live. So at some point, maybe that person who sings perfectly autotune and in the studio will be able to sing perfectly autotune in
live
on stage.
That's a scary thought. That's a scary thought. Because they do have live tuning pedals. I played with an artist that used one, and it's weird because you get that, you know, that super pop auto-tuney kind of voice, and there's like a percentage of it you could use. Like it's you could dial it into a certain percentage so it doesn't like, I don't know how it chooses what parts it tunes and what it doesn't, or if it like tunes it up to a certain degree. But there's some people that fake it real good, or maybe they're just fooling people that are used to hearing a tuned vocal.
Yeah, but I mean, when I read something that I found really interesting was, there was a live means live campaign where if the band displays the live means live when they're doing a show, it means that there's no auto-tune, nothing that isn't 100% live in the show, and there's no backing tracks or anything. So I mean, it's like I said, there are these strong opinions within the music industry that it shouldn't have such a big place, yet it's still growing because as an artist, I think if you want to be on mainstream radio and everything, you're like not really given a choice because that's what people are used to hearing, like you said. And if you don't sound like that, then you sound kind of off without necessarily sounding bad. Yeah, there's just people are just going to say like, this doesn't sound right, because they're so used to it.
And what you're saying right now is just so important because in the end, the audience is able to call BS. The audience will decide whether or not they're going to want to consume your music, live or recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what people decide to do, like if they do it and it works for them, cool. Yeah. Like T-Pain, there is no other artist like T-Pain doing what he's doing. Like it's true. And as wacky as it could sound to somebody, like he puts out good songs. The vocals are super, like, to me, they're super abrasive to me, but like I'll still listen to it because like there's just something so interesting about him. And he is kind of like not a pioneer, but almost.
In a way.
Yeah.
If you take away her autotune, though, she could put on a show.
Mm-hmm.
She still has a beautiful voice, and like she can sing. It's just she was like, I want to do something out of the box. If you just look at her live shows, like she's completely out of her mind, and it's like it just makes sense to me. I think that's just a stylistic thing. Mm-hmm. But I do agree. Like with the amount of music, like the music market is oversaturated. So that's because everybody is capable of putting out good quality music.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people are fighting, is to make sure they still have their place because they merit it and because they're doing it the right way, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Because they don't want to get pushed over by this little teenager here that made a freaking beat in his bedroom and just slapped down some autotune on his. He doesn't want to like beat on the charts by this kid that like didn't fight tooth and nail for his place on a stage at a festival, on the radio charts, wherever you want. Like it's a huge hit to somebody's ego, especially a musician. Forget it. You're in the spotlight. You're being hurt like 12 different ways right there.
Yeah.
So I think it's a fight for somebody's own hard work, because and I'm just thinking about all the pop punk bands we grew up listening to that like did the DIY thing and learned how to play different chords like in a different way, different voicings like over time, and how to put on a better show.
People don't even need instruments anymore.
But it's still instrument in a way.
True.
Yeah. Backing tracks are a huge thing. I've seen a lot of shows where they just have a drummer, a guitar player, and a button pusher.
Mm-hmm.
And people dig it. There's a huge culture for, the minimalistic pseudo DJ kind of approach to live music. And it's live because you've got a drummer and a guitar player and somebody singing, but like it's also not, because they're at the mercy of the track behind them. They're at the mercy of, being in time with everything else. And
there's no moment. Like you can have you can have a chore with you or something, like you have to follow the track.
Exactly. There's different ways, and there's different ways to set up a session, because like there's different DAWs that people use for live programming, where they have like markers, and they could just push a button and it brings them back to the top of the verse. If they want to extend an intro, or if they want to double a chorus, they just like they hit it and it brings them back to the top of the chorus. They have ways that like markers are rigged to lighting rig. So like if those moments happen, the lighting is so consistent. Like there's such crazy ways of setting up a live production with backing tracks and all that stuff, and like either Ableton or whatever it is you're using. But it's crazy. It's crazy because all this technology is at our disposition to make a crazy high energy show. But it's also, some people use it to cheat, and it's like a double-edged sword kind of.
Yeah, totally.
But it's crazy because now it's so popular. But remember, 10 years ago, Ashley Simpson got dragged for using backtracks on a show.
Mm-hmm.
And this was not long ago. This was 10, maybe 15. No, definitely not 15.
And they don't hide the fact anymore that these shows are pre-recorded. These performances are pre-recorded. They're like, we just want to make sure it's flawless and goes through. Because technical issues do happen. Like my bass player's rig was just gone. And it's like, well, the room hears it. And it's fine because it's part of the live experience. But like for a live TV broadcasting, like you don't want that kind of thing to happen.
Because if something bad like that would happen, then she would be dragged for that instead.
Oh, exactly. Yeah.
This is like a lose-lose situation. Yeah.
I think there was more reasons as to why she was dragged specifically, because like it's not the first time that like people have done that before. And I don't know if back then they were hiding, but
I don't know.
I don't know. I think they were just haters, and they were just like, well, she's got to go out. So
let's use this.
Maybe sadly, she was the first one to get caught like hot-handed. Because it was live, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, hers I think was live.
And she stopped singing, or she didn't sing this.
No, it's because
the good song.
Exactly. The backtrack was not the track that she was supposed to sing.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
I never got the whole story about that.
I think that was it. Happened. And so she just kind of froze, and then the song danced. Continued. Yeah, and that's why. Because you could hear the vocals in the back, and so people are like, "You're not singing."
Right.
But I mean, even live, there's backtracking just to help, without necessarily to be the live show. It's there to, I don't know, add some depth to the sound, and in case I don't know, so many things can happen.
Oh, 100%. And it's not even just like in case something happens, it just sounds fuller.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to say.
If you listen really, really closely with a very, very, very attentive ear, you'll hear that there's stacks of vocals doubling, and especially in pop rock productions, one vocal sometimes doesn't sound like enough, especially in a bigger chorus. You stack your vocals, and they just sing the same thing. Syllable by syllable, everything needs to be locked in perfectly, and it's just to make it sound fuller, bigger. And when you bring it to live, you're just one person, so
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So in those instances, it makes sense. Absolutely. But it's just interesting that now it's just so widely used that I feel like there's not much music, mainstream music anyways, where it's just fully organic anymore.
Yeah. Even in the metal scene, you hear it more and more. They like a very polished production.
But like we talked at the beginning, they use it on instrument now. So like you said, the drum is on a grid. Most of the time guitars are chopped in a small part, and you have all the good notes and whatever, and you have a solos chopped in 30 parts instead of having a great solo. But I don't care about autotune that much. I don't like the stuff like T-Pain and stuff like that, but it's just not my stuff. But the thing that grind my ear, it's now people sound all the same. I remember when I was younger, I didn't know which artist was on the radio, but just by hearing the voice of the singer, I was like, oh, that's Oasis, because I recognize his voice. But now it's getting harder, especially if you have many artists under the same umbrella, same producer, same studios, whatever. And I don't think we talk about that, but now autotune is bigger than just a software. You can reproduce a vocal cord, like a virtual vocal cord. So I'm not sure it's the singer voice anymore, or at least it's not.
Yeah, they've got stuff like what's it called? Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. Wow. Basically, it's like you're emulating an organ vocally. It's called.
I saw it.
Dear God, hold on.
Because the guy who I think is Melodyne that have the vocal cord, but it's fascinating. You're emulating a human organ to correct a real human.
Yeah,
like Inception.
It's weird. it's so strange because like you could drop a track and then just like edit it 12 different ways and it just does not sound like you anymore.
Yeah.
That's great. But that's the thing, like it makes me wonder, like, is it cool because the possibilities are infinite, or is it scary because like there's like a loss of like clear identity of an artist and a band? Yeah. So yeah, there's this, that's I guess like that's a moral and ethical discussion that could be had about that, and like some people just don't care and just want to try different things.
But also now, like it's so easy to correct that. Does it make it that people who sing are just not interested in perfecting their voice because anyways it's going to get perfected by the machine,
Right.
So then they're not helping. Yeah, so they're not like perfecting their voice to help out for their live performances or whatever because they don't need to anymore. I mean, so like on one side for them, like it's good for them, it makes it easier for them to succeed. But then I don't know, because there's just not real sound anymore, and I think that's a loss.
It definitely devalues a vocalist because, like, I don't know, I have the intention of going to see an artist I care about live, and if they disappoint me, then it's just like, why even bother?
Yeah.
And I just remembered what it was. It's vocoder.
Yeah.
Vocoder is like a crazy like organ kind of like sound on your voice. It's pretty cool actually. But it's like an effect. You don't sing that way the whole
time.
Except if you're Daft Punk.
Yes, then you're allowed.
But I feel like that's something that sound is something that we're familiar with in electronic music, also.
Yeah.
Because it's something that's, since it's already electronic, the voice needs to be electronic as well.
And there's a lot of crazy innovations and crazy new things that like are borrowed from that, because that's one of the newer genres is electronic music and electroacoustic music, where you sample these strange sounds and you morph them and edit them like various different ways, and you create different samples, and like there's a whole like crazy culture of sampling sounds too that like people are super obsessed with as well. And like you don't even have to record anymore. You just grab a sample, slap it in your track, and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
And then you could even go as far as saying like there's like freaking machines and robots that like write songs with like these different. It's insane. Like technology is moving at a pace that's like kind of terrifying, but kind of exciting too. But I do believe that like the source and the basis and the essence of it is like songwriting and that whole getting in touch with your sensitivity and like writing things that you care about. And I think that's never going to leave because
I hope not.
There's always going to be a market for that.
There's always been artists, and there's always a need for artists. And I do think that artists are the most innovative people on the planet because their ideas might seem far-fetched, but there's somebody out there that can make it happen. So.
But when you were saying, I don't know which part, but I thought about in Japan, there's these, I think they're called Vocaloids.
Okay.
Like Miku? Is
yeah. So they actually have full concerts where it's this holographic anime girl who sings. But it's like, it's a fully, I think, I'm not sure there's an actual person's voice behind that. It's like a fully synthesized voice with this synthesized hologram, and it sells out stadiums in Japan.
That's the future, guys. That's where we're going. It's scary. But there's always going to be a market for everything else. I do think so, because you always want the people that want the rumbling of a bass and a kick drum, that want that feeling of like an electric guitar ringing and like a singer getting up in their face. You can't fake that kind of stuff.
No,
a hologram could only go so far.
Yeah, absolutely. Then your hand's going to go through, and you're trying to reach for it. So I think we've covered a lot of our topic today. Is there anything you two would like to add?
I hope autotune will stay a tool and the overuse of it will be a fad that we will remember as the wah-wah pedal in the 70s and all the chorus in the 80s and stuff like that. So
those are beautiful references. I love it.
And so these were your hosts, Lily.
And Francois.
And we had our guest Liz with us today. Go check her out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, probably.
Yes, I'm back.
YouTube, Spotify, Apple. She does great music. Look out for her. Look out for her new single in this fall and her new album next spring.
And thank you so much for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. You gave us so much cool insight because there's a lot of things that I learned about autotune from your point of view, which is really cool.
And there's a really cool documentary on Netflix called That's Pop, I think. I forgot the name. I wrote it down and something happened and it's not there anymore.
But there's a documentary that's on...
or maybe Pop 101.
Okay.
I think that's what it's called. This is Pop.
Okay.
I was very close.
You're very close.
Yeah, This is Pop. And it covers tuning, Melodyne, autotune, all that pretty extensively.
Cool. So this was Sparkling Harmonies. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.